talking about that theme that troubles so many people. The existence of both good and evil in the world, light and dark, and how do we deal with it? How do we face it? How do we look at the fact that we believe in a good and kind and all-loving, all-merciful God, and yet we're surrounded by so much brutality and suffering? James voiced an opinion that can be found in a lot of our popular media, it can be found in a lot of our popular storytelling, that light and dark sort of exist in kind of a balance, and you can know them in relationship to one another, but you have to have one to have the other. And to illustrate his point, he sort of pointed to his shadow on the kitchen floor, and he said, look, here we are in this bright room, it's lit up, and yet we still have some darkness, we still have a shadow. My perspective was quite different. Because from the perspective of Orthodox Christianity, we look and we say, light in and of itself has being, has essence. In and of itself, it is. It moves, it fills and illumines insofar as it can, as far as it can, as much space as it can. And that shadow, whatever darkness there is, exists only in the place where the light is obstructed. Only in the place where we make a space where it can't be, where it's not welcome. The darkness does not exist on its own, but like cold, it exists as an absence of something else that actually is. Cold is the absence of heat. You don't have cold by itself. Darkness, simply the absence of light. You don't have it by itself. And this same theme is so universal across the stream of philosophical and religious thought that its imagery can be found on every continent, in every religion, among every people. And taking up that universal language, Jesus says in today's gospel, the eye is the lamp of the body. And if the eye is sound, then the whole body will be filled with light. But if the eye is not sound, if the light in you is darkness, how great will that darkness be? Because, my brothers and sisters, the truth of the matter, in all of this poetic language about eyes and light and lamps, is that we take in the vast majority of the world, the vast majority of our senses, even in our speech, through the eyes, through the sight. What we keep in front of us, how we perceive the world as a matter of speaking, primarily through the things that we keep in front of us, that which we fixate on, that which we focus on, becomes the lens through which we view the rest of existence. And when we filled our mind, when we filled our soul, when we filled the eye of our soul with that which is good and beautiful and true and light, that spreads to everything else. But it's not the only option. The very beginning of the Orthodox spiritual life starts with a conversation about this thing called logismi, that is thoughts. The way we deal with the thoughts, these images, these things that we perpetually mull over in the front of our mind, in the back of our mind, that we keep ever before us. That keep us from seeing one another, but instead seeing the image of something else that we're holding in our mind's eye. Multi-million-dollar industries of psychotherapy have been built up around this phenomenon, and it's just the beginning step of our Orthodox spirituality. And those things that we keep there become the lamp that guides the path and that guides the path of our life for better and for worse, and shows us what we think we're looking at. I remember once I was speaking with a divorcee. She was on her second marriage. And she was telling me about her divorce. And she said to me, you know, it started with a thought. And I said, please tell me more. And she said, well, we had been going through a rough patch and we had had a terrible fight. And I went into the laundry room and the thought occurred to me, Would I be happier if I were just divorced? What if we just divorced? And there was a moment where I could have pushed the thought away, but I didn't. Thought about it some more, and I ruminated. And I thought about it the next day and the day after that. And it started to mark our discussions, and it started to bring up a different tone in me. And maybe they would have gotten divorced anyway. And certainly, a marriage, either failed or successful, hinges on much more than that, and it takes two people. But the specific train of events that followed were influenced greatly by how that moment, that thought, that image, which she kept before the eye of her mind, was handled. And it was a major contributor to what followed. She was not orthodox. She didn't know what we had to say about thoughts. But this experience was universal. There is no amount of outside coercion. There is no amount of legislation. There is no amount of good speeches that will cut back, cut down, and eliminate the brutality and the darkness and the pain and suffering of this world. Because the line of brutality that we've drawn does not go across legal lines. It cuts through the heart of each and every individual. That which you keep in front of your mind's eye, that which guides you, that by which you winnow through the realities of life is darkness. How great will that darkness be? My brothers and sisters, we are well down the road to finding out. But when the absence of that which is good, when the absence of light, when darkness appears to be at its thickest, even the smallest shimmer of anything that can be called light shines so much more brightly by comparison and contrast. And if the line of brutality cuts through the human heart, so also does the invitation to holiness and goodness and wholeness. The eye of the soul, the human person, is a lamp. What you take in, what you fill yourself with. Let it be that which is good, that which is holy, which is true. And not only will your whole self and your whole life be filled with that light, you'll be a lamp not only to yourself, but to the world around you, to your families, to your communities, to this suffering world that simply waits and waits in tears for us to be the lamps that we claim to be. And for this language of the light of Christ to be no longer rhetoric, but a reality, made tangible and incarnate in each and every last one of you in their lives. For no one lights a lamp and covers it up. You put it on a stand. It doesn't just give light to the room, but to the whole house.